So what is it? Like, why do you believe that you need both Jesus and therapy in order to be able to effectively heal?
Ooh, you need the spiritual. You need the Holy Spirit to tap in and uncover stuff because there's some things that I forgot. Like
Mhm.
maybe in the midst of trauma, I like suppressed so far deep into my psyche. And so I even went to God and was like, you know what I can handle. So bring it back to our remembrance so that I can deal with it. And I think of it as, you're on a construction site and it's like a big claw and we are excavating together. So we excavate, we go deep, we dig down, and then he gets me to a point where it's like, okay, you're here, this is what's happening. You pray about it. Then I go to therapy and we work on practical tools to get through that moment. And I'd be like, yes, I feel good. I feel strong. And he's like, all right, now we're back on the construction site. We're going to go deeper again. We're going to dig down more. And a piece of me, I was telling my therapist, I was like, why is he doing this? Like, I just want to be healed. And she was like, healed? You could be healed from certain things and still healing, and both can be true. There's no destination you ultimately arrive at, and that's okay. And like, so even just having that professional perspective to know that I'm not crazy. Like, there's certain things that will pop up. I'm like, well, why is this triggering me in this moment? I thought I overcame that. And so to have both a moment where I can speak to God and him remind me of the promises he made to me, remind me of who I am in him, and then also get a professional, practical, like get some tools like, hey, yes, you need to journal, or hey, maybe you need to write a letter to your parents to like let them know, like, even though you guys were great parents, like there are certain things that happened that really affected me, so like to get both sides of it was so key because certain things will pop up. And then I love that my therapist is also a Christian. So she understands. Like I'll be like,
Different.
all right, I was like, the spiritual warfare is warfare. And then she's like, oh, well, let's talk about it. And she
Yeah.
doesn't let me stay too much in the spiritual. Like she brings me back down to earth to be like, hey, like
Yeah.
you're a spiritual being, but you're human, and there's some psychological scientific things that happen as well that can contribute to why you're feeling this. So
I think people get to a place where they might think that I don't need God or whatever. Like they need just one or the other. But in all honesty, if we don't have God in our lives, right, we're just lost and confused. We're just doing whatever. You know what I mean? So, first and foremost, we absolutely need Jesus Christ. He is the only way. He is the
the
only
way, the
way.
truth, and the life. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And I think people might get like a false sense of security thinking, or maybe it's pride thinking that maybe they can do things on their own or they don't need therapy. But I'm a huge advocate for both. Like, of course, Jesus and therapy, because me, with my experiences and the things that I've gone through and my children have gone through, we all at one point were healing at the same time. It has tremendously helped us. Like, not even kidding. It has tremendously helped us in our life and in our journey. So I agree with you 100%. Like, Jesus and therapy sometimes are extremely necessary in certain seasons of our lives. So, absolutely.
And you said false sense of security. That was actually the first poem I wrote for my book. And so I just was like, oh, false. I was like, maybe she knows, but yeah, false sense of security
You
is.
know what? This is the crazy thing. Okay, so I didn't know. So I was trying to think of questions and things to ask you and stuff like that, and that came to my mind. And then once I read your book, I'm like, hold on. I saw that it said false sense of security. I'm like, okay, God, you. So I'm like, this is what is going on here. So we're actually going to talk about that next. So
Wow.
reading your book, Healing in the Mess. One of the poems that stood out to me the most was actually False Sense of Security. And I'm not even kidding, okay? So, because I can really relate to it with my experience and what I've gone through. So, can you talk about the dangers in falling in love with someone's potential, falling in love with someone's potential or who we want them to be, and ignoring red flags, and how important it is to know like your value, your worth.
Mm. The first step in that, and people are not going to like this, but you have to become who you want.
Yeah.
And some people like to skip steps. And I wasn't like, I wanted someone who was safe. I wanted someone who was honest. I wanted someone who was understanding. Like there were certain things I was looking for, but I wasn't that person. And I remember one time I said, I was like, sometimes you're the counterfeit.
Oh wow.
You,
Ooh.
you're showing up expecting someone to fill all these needs, but you're supposed to find fulfillment in those things first. And then for me, a big part was like, oh, if I date someone who says they're a Christian, says that they're a man after God's own heart, then they will help me overcome certain things that I should have worked on in my singleness, like lust or the feeling of not being enough, abandonment, rejection. Like they will help me overcome those things when no, I was supposed to do that work on my own. So then when I got into situations and I was expecting this person to show up more for me than I was for myself, then I was like, well, what's going on? And they were like, I never said I was going to be this person for you. I
Oh
just
wow.
wanted them to be because I didn't want to do the work. But no, they never made that promise to me. Maybe certain things they said sounded close. And then I was like, okay, yeah, that's it, that's it. But because I wasn't that person, the person I needed, the person that I wanted, I couldn't recognize when that person wasn't either. Like, this person's not
Mm.
safe. This person's not kind. This person is not understanding. This person is not really truly after God's own heart because maybe I'm not that right now. So I couldn't
Wow.
recognize those flags because I didn't know what it looked like. But once you become who you are desiring, become what you want, then it's easy to know, like, that's not it. Like, oh, how you're talking to me, that doesn't sound like love because I know what love is. Like how you're treating me, I wouldn't treat me like that. So why would I let you treat me like that? So it's just
Yeah.
understanding, like, sometimes you have to do the work first. And if you're not ready, like say if you're unsure if like what that will look like, just start by getting to know yourself. Like I started a journal where I numbered out 1 to 250. And I was just like, what do you like? What do you love? And this is outside of people, like outside of other people, what do I like? What do I love? And then so it'll be like little things like I love getting forehead kisses. Like this is not about a person, but like just something that I like. It makes me feel like a little cutesy, get a little forehead kiss. Just from like my grandmother or from my dad, like whoever. Getting forehead kisses from someone I love, like just the act of having that forehead kiss, it makes me feel safe. Or I love like a juicy orange, like when you slice into it and it's like gushing out. Like I got to learn myself, and it's like even in the smallest little ways. So it's like
Yeah.
do the work and getting to know yourself because it's a beautiful journey. Like outside of having a relationship with God, getting to know yourself is so beautiful. And we're called to love others as we love ourselves. And it's like if you don't
Right.
even love yourself, what kind of love you
Yeah.
out there giving? You out
Right.
there bleeding on people. So
Yeah.
learn yourself, love yourself, and then you will be able to recognize if this person is love, if they are respect, if they are honor, if they have those fruits of the spirit because you worked on getting those yourself.
Yes. Ooh, that was so good. Okay. That was so powerful. That's the key. You have to be who you expect others to be. If you're not that, then you can't expect them to be that. I hope everyone who is listening is paying attention to this wisdom. Like that's the key. That's so amazing. Be the person that you want, and then you'll be able to recognize those red flags. I don't talk to myself like that. I don't think those things about myself. I take myself out on a solo day every weekend. Why? Like there's certain
Mhm.
standards and things you'll be like, okay, maybe you're not it because I treat myself well. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
you can be able to identify those things. So thank you so much for sharing that because that's wisdom right there.
Yeah.
So even though we might get in relationships and people are showing us who they are, it gets to the point where we might ignore it or deny it. And once again, that was me. I ignored all those red flags in a previous relationship. Like I'm just being transparent and serious.
No, please. Yes.
I ignored all those red flags in relationships. I made excuses and I was trying so hard to hold on to something that God Himself was trying to sever. And do you know how that ended? It ended in a very toxic relationship. Me
Oof.
almost losing my life, my kids, my
Mhm.
sanity in the process. And it just wasn't worth it. It just was not worth it. So I ended up getting to a place where I had to either choose this man or God. And
Ooh.
at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, God, I choose you. You know what I mean? And by choosing God, I know inevitably that I chose me too.
Yeah.
So that was a very traumatic experience for me. But I've mentioned, telling my story before that I've been through domestic violence in the past, very toxic relationship, near death experiences and things like that. So it got to the point, like I said, where it was life or death. Somebody's going to die if I don't get out of this situation. So I had to leave and completely start over with nothing, single mother of three kids overnight. But I had that faith to believe that God was with me and that, I'm like, okay, well, God, I choose you. And He literally took care of me. He provided for me. He did everything that, provided everything that I needed. But, I had to make that first step and say, you know what? This relationship is getting, dangerous. It's becoming an idol. It was an idol and it's not worth it anymore.
Ooh. Thank you. One, like pause for the cause. Thank you for sharing that and being so vulnerable. And just as I'm hearing you like speak and share your story, I'm just overwhelmed by how strong you are, because that
Oh,
takes such strength to really like understand that you like, hey, maybe I'm wrong here. I think that's the point where people they struggle with that. They don't want to be wrong, and they
yeah.
don't want to have that moment where it's like they don't want people to know that they were wrong about someone. That and the thing is not to say that you were always wrong, because maybe they did
Yeah.
show you good qualities, and maybe at one time it was good, but it's like knowing when a season has expired, because with milk is something that we encourage kids to drink, and some adults still drink it too unless you're lactose, but it's something that is good for you. It has nutrients, calcium, all that stuff that's good for you. But when it expires, if you drink that same milk that was once good for you, it will make you sick. You will
Yeah.
be on that toilet or whatever. You will be sick. So it's like knowing when that is, because that's just a very mild example. But sometimes when things expire, like you said, it will kill you. It won't just make you
Yeah.
sick, it will kill you. And you have to, and you not only just made that choice for yourself, and I know that was tough, but you made that for your children as well. And I'm telling you, those seeds sown into giving them more life, like you said, it was life or death, you chose life. Those seeds sown into your kids to give them more life, those are going to be a harvest that you'll get to see because you followed God.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Would you say that the relationship that you reference in your book, would you say that that relationship had become somewhat of an idol in your life? In addition to that, how can our listeners identify when a relationship is kind of taking the place of God and becoming an idol?
It did become an idol. Um, I was trying to all the signs and confirmations that God has like told me over the years about like who my husband was and like what he's supposed to look like, and um, just even just how the relationship was supposed to flow. And I was like, I was really into the fairy tale type love, like the big heroic, big love actions. And so I couldn't even recognize love bombing, because I was just like, oh, yes, I deserve somebody to hop a flight, go across the world to come see me. And it became an idol. Like even my fantasies and my wants for marriage became an idol. And this person knew. It was like, the spirit that was in them knew. And I remember having a conversation with him one day, and I was just like, "Why are you being this way? Like, why are you being so like disrespectful, so mean?" And he was just like, "Well, like it's whatever, because I know that you want marriage, like you want marriage so bad. So, like, hey, take it or leave it." And I was just like, "Ooh, no, like that's I don't
The
want
fact
it
that
that
he
bad."
told you. what he was doing. And that happened to me as well. It's like, if you really be quiet, pay attention, and listen,
They
they
will
will
tell you.
tell you what they're doing. Just let them talk and listen. And for me, it was the same situation as well. But what he said is, um, he said, my dad used to do the same thing to people. He would break people down mentally. He said that. And looking back, I'm like, he
Ooh.
literally said that to me. And he was doing the same thing to me the whole time. It was mostly mental and emotional abuse. So we gotta pay
Ooh.
attention, you know? Yeah.
Pay attention.